Ooh.
The superb owl.
If you want to call it that.
I mean, I want to call it that so you don't get blacklisted by algorithms for using copyrighted material. So,
that's true. Well, it wasn't very super, so at least it didn't feel like it.
Okay. Ignoring the fact that the team who won, you don't like it. It was a good game.
I mean, I guess. It was a good defensive game.
Yeah.
Which just doesn't make some
good offensive plays.
Yeah.
Again, separate the fact that it's the Rams. It was it was better than the blowout of the Chiefs we had, or some of the prior Super Bowls.
It was better than a blowout, just because at any moment, someone could win, take the lead, and that's what happened. But I don't know, just maybe I don't know, just didn't feel invested. It didn't feel like there was a good story behind it. Oh yeah, they almost won. Well, of course they won. They sold out to win, and they should win. So they should win.
Here's a counterpoint to that. There was a stat they showed during the game. It was something like 8 or 10 of some high amount of starters for the Bengals have only been with the team 2 years, and they're all free agents.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, yes, the Rams have spent a lot of draft capital on a couple of big players and brought in other players on shorter deals. That's not that different from what the Bengals did. The only difference is they had Stafford and Von Miller, who were high-profile guys who took a lot of picks, plus a bunch of other smaller guys.
True. They went big this season, and it paid off. But it also felt like the way the team was built, they could have won it without Stafford, but Stafford was definitely that linchpin that made it happen.
I don't think they could have done that with guaranteed. Goff just
no. You get OBJ, a Kupp doing what Kupp is doing.
Yeah, but look what Goff did. We had Woods, Kupp. Who else was on that team with them? When Kupp was number 3, you had Woods and Gurley. How many times they flame out with Goff at the helm?
That's true.
I do think Stafford was it's kind of we could say, if Winston had been able to shave off his interceptions, the Bucs could have won the Super Bowl with that roster. But it's also clear that, Brady is an upgrade to Winston. That's something you can't argue. And I think it's the same kind of here where Stafford is an upgrade to Goff.
Oh, yeah, he was a big upgrade. And, of course, he's a veteran. Don't really have to... you even mentioned, it was more of a collaboration. It wasn't really coaching and telling him what he needs to do. It was implementing what he wants in the offense, and it was collaboration. So it was a big leg up. But I'm curious on what happens to them this coming season and honestly the next 2 seasons.
I mean, I'm sure they'll fall apart. But we're going to start seeing the same thing happen to the Chiefs and the Bucs and those other teams who, well, yes, the Chiefs might have gotten there different where they built a lot of the team. They've given a lot of those guys big contracts, and they're going to start having a hard time paying that same thing. But another kind of flip side is also the salary cap goes up, so that'll help, I think, offset some of the turnover.
Yeah,
but it's still going to essentially be because not just players, they're probably going to lose the majority of their coaching staff. Between O'Connell going to the Vikings, it looks like he's going to take at least 2 or 3 guys. Then their DC is going to go somewhere else, and he's probably going to take 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah, I believe there's already 2 guys that are going to be pulled out. Shoot. No, I think Will Hoyt was in San Diego. But no, Will Hoyt was there. He's a linebacking coach. He's leaving, I think, for the Saints. Oh no, he's going to Miami. But yeah, I know the Rams are losing. I think the running backs coach, he's going to Minnesota to be the offensive coordinator, at least.
tight ends coach. I would just read an article. So it's sounding like the Vikings are going to take Morris, who's their DC. Let's see. Who else? Wes Phillips, their tight ends coach and passing coordinator. And also the running backs coach, Thomas Brown, is interviewing as well. So that's just the Vikings. And it's like, yeah. Even if they can keep a lot of the guys, that's a lot of staff turnover. It's going to be really hard to have any continuity with.
Yeah, which again makes me curious on how serious McVay was on retiring. Because he's young.
Yeah.
But you have to rebuild not only a roster, you have to rebuild a coaching staff and try to continue to win without any draft picks to rebuild. So do you kind of pull a Sean McVay and just kind of be like, I'm good?
You mean Sean Payton?
And then, yeah. Two Seans.
Yeah, easy to get a mix up.
Yeah.
Like, that would I have a hard time seeing. Like, yes, he has to rebuild.
I do too.
I mean, it'd be one thing if he was like, 60s or 70s and like, I don't want to go through this again, but this is really his first
mid-30s
rebuild. Yeah, like he could easily have a team potentially rebuilt by the time he's in his 40s. And that paired with having a ring on it under his belt. Like, it's also one of those, what has he got to lose by trying it? The worst that happens is, okay, it doesn't work out. He takes some time off, then goes to another team. Like, unless he really flames out, it's not like some team's going to go, oh, nope, sorry, we don't want you.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I kind of want to see how some of these coaching staffs kind of play out, especially the NFC West this year, just because it's an odd situation now. But I don't know. Like, I could see him leave. And I don't know if he would leave being like one of those guys like, I left a legacy, when it's like, really, you won one ring. Like,
yeah.
Like, the guys who leave a legacy, like, you got your Bill Belichick. Like, come on. Like, you're not really compared to that. Like, there's tons of guys who've won a ring and
the one and
yeah, they get remembered. Yeah, they're one and done. Like, you gotta keep competing. So I don't know. I do think he probably won't, because he is a football guy.
Yeah.
So he's got to be competitive. So I'm sure he'll stay in it. But I don't know. It's an interesting thought that he's like, yeah, I'm more about family and I'm going to leave.
Yeah. I mean, I think another thing to think about is also it's having won a Super Bowl, having built a team through, draft, free agents, all that stuff. Even before this, he had kind of turned LA into a destination players want to go to. They were able to draw a lot of people in because people wanted to go play there for whatever reason. They felt it was a good destination, and that's been fairly consistent. He's built to draw players. Having won a ring on top of that, it's one of those. I don't see him leaving unless he actually steps away. Or he gets like some crazy offer from another destination franchise, like an established franchise. And even then, what would that be? Like, what would you want to go to over the situation with the Rams now as far as attractiveness of getting talent? Like,
there really isn't one.
Yeah.
Like,
because honestly, their owner is very much like, unless something happens with the owner, which is possible. So
very possible.
But also at the same time, anyone who takes over for that owner, they gonna want to go in and go, blow up whatever this coach did when he just got a Super Bowl. Like, that'd be a real dumb part on whoever takes over.
Yeah. I don't know. The Rams are going to be one of those teams that I think going to be interesting to see over the next 2 years. Just because so many other players are older. So many of them just muttered, retirement. Like, they're in the retirement talks now.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, Donald's one of them, even though he's 30. You have so funny. You have Stafford who's in that talk, and really, I'd be surprised if he doesn't come back just because of how competitive he is. Very obviously by playing on so many injuries, but he kind of should retire just because of how many injuries he sustained.
Oh yeah.
So it's like you know that's a countdown now.
It's
Whitworth needs to retire.
Whitworth. I will be shocked if he comes back. I think out of everyone on the team, that's basically guaranteed that he steps away. I don't see how he wouldn't. But beyond that, it's like, okay, Weddle, yeah, that guy's probably he's gonna step away.
He already said he's retiring, not coming back.
he was literally already retired. I don't see him coming back.
Yep.
But beyond that, it's like, okay, you have Darius Williams, who's 39, but Stafford at 34, and then Von Miller at 32. Everyone else is 30 or younger. Which isn't to say that they're all young guys, but that's actually a lot more youthful than I thought. I thought they were a lot older as far as like a lot of their starters. That's still fairly good. A lot of those guys are going to still have quite a few years left. It's more the lack of draft picks and contracts. That's, I think, and even then, like, good salary cap's going up. They'll probably be able to afford a lot of those contracts. It's will they be able to bring in guys to replace the roster churn? That's, I think, what's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I don't see that happening because a lot of those guys in their late 20s, this is when they get their big contracts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and they want a ring now. That raises that value.
But at the same time, some of those guys, especially maybe those older guys who instead of cut, you can probably get a fair amount of picks out of there. I'm like, there are certain guys I don't think they'd want to trade, but like, you could probably get a fair amount for Von Miller. Leonard Floyd, he could probably get a fair amount. Who was the other D tackle? Why am I blanking on it? Who was the other D tackle? And of course, now it's not letting me sort. But they have quite a few people that they could potentially, use as trade bait to, get some picks back. I mean, I don't think they would, but like, if you did like something like Ramsey or Donald, you could easily probably get at least 2 first-round picks for Donald. I don't think they would do that, but they have enough guys that they could at least get enough to survive the next couple of years. But it's still like almost one of those, like, it's probably better just to blow it up and rip the Band-Aid off now, honestly. One thing I will say, though, is someone made this point, is really think about, like, the Bengals were like a few months away from the Super Bowl. That was probably the best overperformance of a team we've probably seen in a long, long time.
Yeah. I mean, with a team that had an O-line that was non-existent, and then playing against a team with an elite D-line, like, Burrow made plays happen, but it's just late game. As soon as that late game hits, they're going to fall apart. They're tired.
Well, I think part of the big thing is also when they started getting sacks was when the Rams started bringing 5 guys. That was when they started getting Burrow. It was like midway to the third, they kept on trying to rush 4, only got 1 sack. As soon as they started bringing that 5th guy, that's when they got the other 6 sacks. And that's, I think, props to their O-line for hanging against those 4 guys for so long. That's insane.
Yeah.
But as soon as you have them going one-on-one, that's when they all fell apart. And it's because, as they kept showing, by rushing forward, they were able to keep on bringing the center to help with Donald. That's what really made the difference. What I think is going to be interesting, though, is if they can make it back. Because another point that someone brought up was, we have this assumption like, he's real good. He's going to make it back to the Super Bowl. But the counterpoint they brought up was, we all said the same thing about Aaron Rodgers. They said the same thing about Dan Marino. It's really hard to make it back. Like, I mean, for that matter, how many times did Russell Wilson make it to the Super Bowl? and he's one of the better ones. There's very, very few quarterbacks who actually make it more than 2 or 3 Super Bowls. So that's not to say I don't think they can. If they can fix their O-line, they're in really good shape. But it's a question of can they fix their O-line while keeping the other pieces? And it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be taller. Like the defense played well, but with how much they've invested in it, like over the past 2 seasons, it should have played better. And then how much money had they poured into that? Yeah. And then are you really going to be able to retain that receiving core? Probably not. Mm-hmm. Like they're going to get competing offers from other contenders because they're really good. Primarily Boyd, probably this offseason. Higgins is maybe. I could see Higgins come back though.
If they're smart, they use either Higgins's or Boyd to get either picks, a bunch of draft picks, or some key players in positions of need. Because, yes, it's great to have 3 amazing receivers. It's you do it now before something happens or one of them leaves anyways.
Yep.
And they have needs. They need offensive line. They need more. They need to get rid of Eli Apple.
Yeah, and I mean, you've shown that obviously you draft receiver really well. You kind of up to the Steelers, I feel. So maybe you meet that need in the draft if there's someone you like.
Yeah, well, especially I want to say the Bengals have like $37 million of under the cap right now, and that's right now before it goes up. So they have plenty of room to get a bunch of rookies and also trade for some free agents.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's, with some of the roster churn, we'll see, having seen some of the other guys who are stepping away, it's possible you'll see some other guys open up. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Evans or Godwin trying to get out of Tampa Bay with Brady stepping away, or, things like that where, hey, that's a pretty no-brainer. Like, oh, yeah, we lose Higgins or Boyd, but pick up Evans or Godwin. Why wouldn't you want to make that trade?
Yep. I mean, there's some other, I guess, under-the-radar receivers that you can get. Like, Vincent Jackson? Oh, man. Say that name. Oh. That was weird. Oh, like a word vomit.
Yep.
I don't know why that name came. But, Marquise Goodwin, he's a guy that I could see end up with Cincinnati. He's a speedy dude. You run him out of the slot. He matches kind of their offense, deep threat. Will create space for Chase and, Higgins or Boyd, whichever one you can keep or whichever one you decide. Because I feel at this point, Boyd, you might be able to keep on a discount. Higgins, probably pricier. So if you have to make that budget call.
It's really going to be hard because I also would be surprised if Boyd really wants to go get a shot as being the number one. Because when Higgins and Chase were both hurt, he showed he could do it.
Oh, yeah.
So even I don't know if he's going to want to go okay, I'll be 2 when it's clear Chase is their number one. So that's why, unless Higgins is super expensive, I think Boyd's the one they're more likely to lose just by virtue of that. It's like, the whole Stephon Diggs or something like that where he wants to go be the top dog. There's plenty of teams where will have that opportunity.
Yeah, I'd say a caveat to that would be I haven't seen any chatter. You always saw chatter with Diggs.
Yeah,
you always saw he was unhappy, wanted to go somewhere else, upset with the organization, even if not outwardly saying he wants to go somewhere else. But you haven't seen any of that from Boyd.
Yeah, but I mean, also it's because he was potentially about to win a ring.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas now that they didn't, there's going to be the Super Bowl hangover where very, very few teams can win the ring the following year. And so then it comes a matter of, does he feel like the team will be able to address the needs without losing pieces to overcome that hump? Or does he want to go try his luck at one of the other teams that are maybe positioned for a run? Because there's going to be quite a few.
Yeah. I mean, Tampa's going to have a need for a receiver. Because they only have Evans under contract. They can. I want to say Godwin's restricted free agent.
I know one of them is, but I can't remember which one.
And for sure, Godwin.
Yeah, but I mean, Miami, they could use some help. Like, yeah, they have Judy, but
I mean Parker, but he was on and off with injury.
Yeah. Oh no, Judy's Denver. Sorry. But
Yeah.
it also depends on what happens. Depending on where Rodgers goes, maybe they would.
Denver.
If they can't bring Adams or someone with them, then maybe he wants to go there. Or, what about Indianapolis? Like, there's a few different places where potentially you could see some change depending on what happens to quarterbacks and the rest of the team. Yeah, I don't know.
With that though, like I would expect the Bengals to make a push, and the Rams, I feel like there's too many question marks right now.
Yeah.
Depending on the offseason goes, I could see him do it again. Yeah, make a run. But it's seeming fairly unlikely.
Mm-hmm. I think we're going to see another, not, Brady Bucks, but John Gruden Bucks, where they just, fall apart and don't make it back again for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's more just because, unlike those Bucks, they really did go all in this year, which it paid off.
Hard.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah. I mean, and that was one of those. There was the whole time I was sitting there, I was actually wondering why they were so focused on the run and insist on rushing 4 guys and they weren't getting that is, I think, one of the things that frustrates me most about coaches is when they are so insistent on, we know we can get to them with 4 guys, so we're going to keep on doing it.
So changing it up, making them think again, come with 5. Mm-hmm. Even bring 3 just to confuse them. And
exactly.
Mix it up.
They get stuck in their ways where we're going to keep running even though it's doing nothing. It's, I mean, Zimmer, he did this all the time. He was afraid of going, okay, the run's not working. Let's use the pass to set up the run. That way we can still do the run, but then we just focus on the pass. Then they can't stack the box. Or, okay, we'll rush 5 guys because, 4's not cutting it. And then once that starts getting in, then we can start changing things up. It would just, McVay adjusted in time. Mm-hmm. Even though that was probably actually like Morris or whatever. But still.
It probably was.
Yeah. But I think, honestly, that's really what it came down to was that. And also, this is another thing is, really think about this. The Bengals, off 2 interceptions, only able to score 3 points.
Yeah. That was impressive.
And on one of those, they win.
Yeah. And I mean, I expect that from the Rams defense. It was a toss-up on if the receivers would get open. But the biggest thing was if that O-line was going to be a hold-up. And
yeah.
I mean, it couldn't in those crucial moments.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing. If the Rams hadn't started rushing 5, they probably would have held up. That's the crazy part to me. But I mean, there was quite a few things where I was really surprised. I felt like they didn't use Mixon as much as they probably should have. He had 15 for 72, but it's still one of those, I'm surprised they didn't try more really using their running game. Or, two back sets or something to help take pressure off.
I get what you're saying. Even though I was, cooking a lot, I noticed that he didn't implement a lot of plays that got the ball in the playmaker's hands. It was a lot of Burrow's going to make the plays rather than taking that off of him. Do that wide receiver screen to Chase, run the jet sweep. Halfback screen, nothing.
Yeah, the fact that they basically did no screens or sweeps really is mind-boggling. When you are a team who can't stop the rush against an elite rush defense, pressure defense, how do you not try at least some of those? Even a bootleg, something to make it harder, to make those guys run left to right, to tire them out, or just make it so exploit that.
Yeah, there was nothing to get Burrow in space, which I think should have, being someone who's on his couch, but I think should have been implemented. Just because that pass rush is going to get home. The question is when.
Yeah.
And then when you see that defensive adjustment, okay, we need to implement this package, get him in space, give him time.
I mean, for that matter, how many designed runs for Burrow did they try? That's another one. Like, they could have tried something like that. The dude only ran for 3 yards.
Yep.
And yeah, it's. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's like, we can point to the ticky tack holding penalty and stuff like that, but ultimately that isn't what lost the Bengals the game. Because they had 2 straight penalties after that were blatant penalties where they tried solid defense. On top of that, they got the ball back with, what was it, 2 timeouts at a minute 25.
Yep.
And they weren't able to get it done. It's even with that, yes, that hurts, but they still had other chances, and there were just too many mistakes. They weren't able to get it done. And I think it's a combination of their O-line was their O-line, and they made the kind of mistakes you expect from a team who this is their first time in the playoffs in decades.
What it's similar to is, I guess, McVay's first shot. Like, if you kind of think about it, he made bad calls. He took a lot of ownership for that first Super Bowl run, and his problem that he outwardly said was that he micromanaged a lot of the game. So it didn't seem like he made that happen this time, which was good. But yeah, I don't know. They got away from the game. They didn't implement a game plan that worked well against the Rams.
Yeah.
Some plays, worked, but
yeah, well, like they were in it for a lot longer than I was expecting. And I think what really helped keep them in the second half was that touchdown. Like, I mean, even ignoring the fact that, yes, it's very obvious there should have been a penalty, that was still a hell of a play by Chase.
Who's heading into year number?
That was a great catch. It wasn't as good as that one-handed grab. Can't remember who made. I think it was, don't remember if it was Chase or Higgins made later. That was even more impressive to me. Like, Ramsey fell down, he got with one hand, but still,
it was Higgins.
That touchdown at the start of the second half, I think that really kind of disrupted the Rams a bit, and it took them a bit to recover. But because, from going like, oh, we were down, up by 3 to down by 4 on one play. So props to them. Then especially getting the field goal, they should be able to get back here, especially with the power shift in their division. It's looking like the Browns are going to get blown up. I mean, if anything, I think OBJ showed that he wasn't the problem in Cleveland.
Yeah, well, yes and no.
I mean, yes, he's a diva.
Yeah, I'd say outside of personality issues, he had Kupp to take away a lot of coverage. So he gets those one-on-one matchups, so he's going to get open.
Yeah, but it's also I think he had someone to take away that attention to open it up, but also, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to try to argue Baker's a better quarterback than Stafford. I think at this point we can definitively say Baker's probably not a good quarterback. He's serviceable, but he's had enough opportunity to step up, and he hasn't. But on top of that, you have the Steelers. They're essentially in a rebuild mode. Who knows how long that'll take them? And the Ravens have kind of underperformed, all things considered, for having their offense in Lamar. And granted, part of it is they have a lot of weaknesses. So that division, the Bengals, if they play their cards right, they could still control that division for the next few years.
I think, barring what the Steelers do with their QB situation, that division's probably going to be owned by the Bengals next season. Just because, like you said, Mayfield's serviceable. He's not the guy, though. And the Ravens, this is part of the course for Greg Roman. He really doesn't implement anything new. He kind of does the same thing and doesn't really change the packages. I feel like there's no evolution season to season. Because this is what he did with Kaepernick, and what he did in San Francisco. There was a steady decrease in production on the offense.
Yeah.
while he was there, and that's kind of reflecting this year, or at least this last season with Lamar. Like outside of him, either coaching or schematically, I don't know what is doing it. Yeah, they probably need some help still on probably the O line, and
Running
getting
back.
some real receivers and
Real
running
receivers,
back,
running back.
healthy
Yeah.
running back.
Yeah.
They went deep on running back.
Well, and that's the thing. It's the Rams could potentially turn a corner, because especially it's not even so much their offense; it's their defense. That's, I think, was actually even their bigger issue. It's they were hurt. Even when they were hurt, they weren't the Ravens we're used to under Harbaugh. If he can build that defense back up again, even with the offense in the state it's in, it's serviceable enough that they could be a really scary team.
They're at least wild card.
So that's, I think, the other question mark in that division is what happens with the Steelers rebuild, and also can the Ravens rebuild that defense? If either one of those two things is ahead of schedule, pulls it off, it's going to be hard for the Bengals. But if they don't, because nothing's guaranteed, they're in a really good spot.
Yeah, that's probably just going to take a lot of the Ravens getting healthy because they had a good secondary. But injuries knock that off. The same goes for the running back.
Yeah, I am curious to see it. It's not quite as crazy as last year where there were just so much. What team is going to be good? I have no idea. But I think there is still quite a few question marks going into next year. Like even this offseason alone.
There's going to be another QB carousel. There's all these coaching hires.
I think also this QB carousel is actually going to be harder on teams just because, like, last year you had a lot of fairly good to great quarterbacks changing, whereas now it's going to be a few really, top level QBs, and then a bunch of other teams having to fill with, like, okay, well, what else do we, who's serviceable, because there's such a weak QB class in the draft.
Yep.
That a lot of those teams who would, be trying to draft that rookie quarterback, it's like, well, we could conceivably see maybe one or two QBs go in the first round, if that, and that would be like later half.
Yeah.
So, and there's quite a few teams who have uncertainty, if not outright question marks at quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, as far as all the rumors that I've read recently on Garoppolo, it's like the Commanders are like potentially going to give up number 11, their 11th pick overall. Just today I saw the Eagles are like their expectation to be contenders for it. And then of course I saw Pittsburgh early on, but they're saying like the Commanders are front runners because of that first round pick. And the fact that there's no QBs. So it's like, well, there's no QBs. Giving up the first round pick for a good QB. It's not a bad trade.
But I mean, even on top of that, there's other teams who might not have been in that conversation, but it's Texans could very easily be looking for a QB.
Oh, yeah.
The Colts, the Falcons. I would not be surprised to see Ryan either leave or get traded. Panthers have some. I would not be surprised if they get rid of Darnold. Even the Saints, the Bucks. I mean, yeah, now I'm actually going down the list. The Browns, the Steelers, Dolphins, maybe even the Giants, Lions, and even potentially the Packers. There's actually like quite a few teams who could be looking for a new QB. So I could also see that conversation heating up as well, where, they might not be able to give you the 11th overall pick, but if they gave maybe a later first and, a second round pick, maybe.
Yeah, and I understood why the Commanders and the Eagles, they're like top kind of rumors, just because the Commanders, they have that 11th pick, solid pick, but also they have, I think it's Fuller in the secondary.
Okay.
Who they can use to trade. And then the same thing goes for the Eagles, where they have Darius Slay, which fits a need for us as well.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of the justification I saw in those rumors. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But then there's those other teams, the Bucks. I could see be a good destination. The Saints definitely as well.
Yeah.
At least for Jimmy. I don't think he would ever go to Green Bay though, because they're giving him say, just because he's from Chicago.
That's fair. That's fair. I can understand that. Yeah. Well, I mean, but also, well, I understand like there's guys like, oh, I never want to play for that team, but also really think about, especially if you're a guy like Jimmy. So go in, play for Matt LaFleur. Well, yes, he hasn't won a Super Bowl. He's shown to put together good offenses. It's arguable that was more Rodgers than him, but it's like still there's the potential. It really is a good opportunity for you to go and show, no, I'm a good quarterback. I can do this. Because if he can go in and continue to, win that division, taking over for Rodgers, that's a pretty good sign.
It is. I think he could. I think he could be successful in a place like Green Bay. But at the same time, I don't see him doing it, and I could see LaFleur having some issues with his calling. I mean, he kind of showed it. He showed it when he put Love in. Like, you're really going to make this guy throw over 40 times in a game that you really kind of need to win against the Chiefs.
That's fair.
When you could run it with Aaron Jones. Like, there's some questionable decisions he's made that, I don't know. He has a question mark for me.
Well, yeah.
Good coach, but it's like...
I mean, we could say the same thing. There's questionable decisions by Jimmy G, so that's why it almost feels like a perfect fit. It's two guys who have something to prove, even though a lot of people say they don't, but they really do. They really do have a lot of something to prove. I mean, and the other thing, actually, now I really think about the thing that could also make Green Bay a lucrative destination is Rodgers is probably gone.
Yep.
But it's possible that they could get, that means they also might be losing Adams, maybe some of those other guys, which potentially means that depending on if they try to trade them instead of just cut them or something, they could be getting some good draft picks and other players. So they could actually be a pretty quick rebuild. They would be in a good position, especially because they're losing Rodgers' contract, which is a huge part of, their salary cap issues. So I could see them being a very lucrative destination for a Jimmy G or Matt Ryan or someone like that, who's a veteran quarterback who just wants to go into a team that is not far away.
Yeah. And I could see them do it, and I could see him swallow his pride and go for it because, they're winners that, they want to win kind of thing. And that's what he wants. He just wants to go to a team that's ready to win. Like how you put it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's other options. I think you consider them first.
Yeah.
A couple of things I could see happen instead. Like I could see the Eagles fall out of that talk and instead go into talks with Arizona.
Try to get Murray.
And swap Kyler and Murray, or Hurts and Murray.
Yeah, no, that would seem like a good move because they're both similar styles.
Because I could see Kingsbury make that work with Hurts. And I don't know. I think Murray might be a problem, honestly, wherever he goes, if they're not winning.
Yeah, but also, so here's the thing where I feel that, and it's hard to gauge if it's the system and everything, but just from what I've seen, Murray seems like the better passer than Hurts.
That's true, and I'm honestly not thinking specifically on skill sets because I do think that Murray has, if you're comparing him, that like Russell Wilson, extend the plays, even though the O-line can't hold a block, he creates something, makes it happen. But without that guy to get open like Hopkins, he struggles, and he's shown issues in leadership. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So in the playoff game, he benched himself. He didn't want to go back out there,
which is fair. I don't know. Like that one, I still think though it's from the Eagles' perspective, that seems like if I were them, I would go for Wilson or Murray because they fit your scheme and they fit your staff. But then the other big thing that for them is they are better passers than Hurts is, and that's what you really need. You've established you can run the ball. You've established that a quarterback in scramble can do well in your system. You need someone who's better in the passing game. And so if you can bring one of those two in, plus maybe say another good receiver, you're in pretty good shape on your offense. So, and trading Hurts for one of those two guys could be a tempting offer for them. And that's actually one of those now I think like, I wonder if maybe the Eagles push for Wilson instead of Murray.
I could see that in that you could keep Hurts, bench him for Wilson, tell him, yeah, you're going to learn. Because, yeah, he was big time, one read and run, which is typical of a running quarterback. But he can learn a lot from Wilson. And be like, I feel like that's an easier conversation of instead of if you're traded, hey, we want you to still be here, be our future, but we want you to learn and learn from one of the best.
Yeah. And not only that seems like it's an offense already suited towards Wilson. It's a team that made the playoffs. They need more pieces, but still they made the playoffs. And also it's like the other thing in their defense is towards the end of the season, they had a lot of COVID, a lot of injuries. So if they're coming back healthy next year, they might not be as bad off as they look like towards the end of this year. So that could make them an enticing landing destination for Wilson as well. The one I'm really curious to see who ends up is I'm curious to see what happens with the Colts because I really think they're going to try to move on, and that's a team that feels like they just need a consistent QB and maybe another receiver, and they're golden.
Yeah, and I've heard them be in the mix for a QB this season because they're already either expected. I don't know if they're expected to drop Wentz, but they're expected to trade him for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like with any of these big QBs, like your Wilson, say he does go to the Eagles, like that instantly becomes a destination. Because you got Wilson, and then hey, this team made the playoffs with what was technically a rookie quarterback. So
yeah, but at the same time, assuming Wilson gets traded, now you have Seattle with potentially Metcalf, Lockett, Carson. Can't remember the second string running back, and then a lot more cap room and draft picks from that Wilson trade. They could also then become a pretty enticing spot to go to because it's also it's historically a hard place to play on the road. But I think what's going to be interesting, like there's just a part of me that feels that I could see the Colts really going for Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I can see that.
It seems like trading Wentz for Ryan is a trade they can make, and I think Ryan's an upgrade for him. Well, he's not great.
He's more secure with ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's like we've seen, like, you put him behind the Colts O-line with Jonathan Taylor, he can probably do really well. He could have a revival. So then you're like, okay, we get Matt Ryan, just get him like another receiver to throw to. You're set offensively.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Julio was on a 1-year deal. The Tennessee, so
that. I mean, yeah, I'm sure he could convince Julio to go.
Yeah, hey, take a 1-year deal with me over here,
man.
And then you got I think they still have Hilton under contract.
They have Hilton, and they also have who was that other receiver?
Oh man, I don't know. He was on my fantasy team.
It was it Paris Campbell? Pascal.
I was thinking Michael Pittman.
Pittman,
Jr.
that's it. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know why I thought Pascal, because Pascal filled in.
he had a really good season.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, you throw have Julio as a number 3 to Hilton and Pittman with Taylor in the backfield, the Colts O-line, and Matt Ryan throwing to him.
Dangerous.
Yeah. Especially you have, like, Mo Alley Cox. He's a pretty good tight end, too.
Oh, yeah. Big guy.
They are now instantly a contender.
Yeah. With that defense that's really good at taking the ball away.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're a contender. But that's if they can get that. And that's also, in all honesty, they're a contender as long as they upgrade the QB position.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah.
Oh.
But, I mean, yeah, like, now I think about that actually seems like a move I could really see happening just because he seems like a really good target and it would all fit. As opposed to some of the other teams who, well, yeah, they have quarterback needs. Matt Ryan is going to want to go to a team. He's going to want to do what Brady did. He's going to want to do what Stafford did. He's going to want to go to a team that is already built for a run.
Yep.
Whereas, like, yeah, Denver, even if they don't get Rodgers, they're not necessarily built for one. Like, unless you get traded to, like, the Raiders, there's not as many options that are really in such a prime position that are also quarterback needy.
Yep. I mean, with that, I could see Rodgers go there too, but
yeah. The only reason why I think Ryan is the more likely one is also Ryan isn't going to command as much money.
Sure. I don't think at this point it's entirely about the money, and yeah, Rodgers would just by default be more money.
Yeah,
but
well, no, I don't mean like the money that they would like demand. It's more, I think Ryan is going to be the cheaper one to get.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Also, like, he's less drama.
That's
true.
He
does not have any of that circus.
No locker room issues.
Yeah. And not only that, also, like, Ryan seems like he's the kind of guy where, like, well, yes, he's leading your offense. He's also not going to try to be a Peyton, where he's like, this is my offense. We're doing what I say. Yes, he'll push, but he's also going to be willing to work with your. He's not going to make you totally tear down your system and build a new one around him. He's going to be like, okay, yeah, let's go. And that just seems to fit more the culture they've built there as well. That's the other reason why I think he seems like that's a better fit for him.
I can see it.
Man.
I mean, why don't we touch on our teams real quick?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, what to touch? What to touch? All of it. I don't know, man. I go into next season with mixed feelings. It's of course excitement because you got a second year, which is really kind of a first year QB, just because you spent the first season sitting down, which I think was really beneficial. And I do think a lot of people don't appreciate probably what he learned from Jimmy in that backseat role. A lot of the leadership skills, how to ignore the media, because he's going to be criticized a lot depending on how he comes out. So, and with that system, because everything I've read about that system is like it's a whole thing. And then he's lucky enough he gets an armband, because apparently when they first implemented it, they didn't have armbands. You had to make your calls off memory.
That sounds awful.
Kittle was talking about that about Beathard, because when he came into the game, they didn't have armbands, so he had to make play calls based on memory.
That sounds awful.
That sounds like a nightmare, because it sounds very intricate.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of free agents too that we have going on. So within the secondary,
which
those are big ones.
The secondary, I think that seems like a big need for you guys, because you guys had a lot of injuries. Yeah, guys had showed some promise, but even like the guys who filled in for injuries seemed like they could have performed a lot better. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how you guys can fix that. Because that was that was your biggest issue on defense, really, was your secondary.
And I don't know. I feel like they could convince Witherspoon to come back because he's supposed to be a free agent as well. He was our slot who came back just in time for the playoffs. Between him, Thomas, who I hope could show up some more. Hopefully, I am hoping slightly that we kind of sign back Verrett, at least on another 1-year deal. He got injured very first game, but he had a really great 2020 season. Looked like he was about to take off for 2021, and
that's always rough when it gets derailed like that.
And I don't know, maybe they can pull something off with this trade with Garoppolo.
Yeah, well, and that's, I think, really, like, you guys are almost in a holding pattern where you have to wait to see what you get when you move on from Garoppolo. Because it's at this point, it really does feel like it's a done deal. It really does. So then that's really the big question: is what do you get? Do you get a player? Do you get picks? Is a combination? And then that helped to kind of get ideas like, okay, we have this pick in the draft, so we can start looking. Okay, what's potentially available to fill these needs versus, okay, we're getting these players. Okay, how can we fit them into the scheme? Yep. But until then, it's really hard to really kind of start projecting. Oh, okay, this is what we're going to start be looking at, especially when you have a bunch of guys with 1-year deals and had a bunch of guys who were hurt. Because it's hard to gauge, like, hey, who do you target then when you don't even know who you're still going to have?
Yeah, and I mean, there's other free agent signings that we need to make on the D line, especially too, because there's a few guys we signed on 1-year deals. Let's see, one big name who his contract actually just expired was DJ Jones. He played right up the middle. He had a really good season, stopping the run and rushing the passer.
Yeah.
So well, and that's hopefully they sign him to a good deal.
I mean, yeah, considering like really your defense does. It's like the Reds where it revolves around the front four. That's where everything starts. And so, like, even like as we saw, like, losing even one guy can really derail that. So if you can't keep at least 3 of those 4 guys, that really sets you back. So,
I mean, see, besides him, Hurst Jr., I think Omenihu needs an extension because I think he was still on his rookie deal from the Texans. And he was one of the guys who was cycled in and out. I think it was Hurst Jr. Maurice Hurst. He's the guy we picked up on a 1-year deal. He played really well this season for us.
So then here's a question. Who do you see ending up as your lead running backs and your starting wide receivers? Do you think it stays about what you guys have had, where you have like, Hasty, Mostert, or Mitchell, one of 2 of those 3 as your starters running back? Do you see one of them ends up solidifying? Do you think Ayuk and Jennings stays as your 2 and 3, or do you think you guys try to bring someone else in?
I would expect, of course, it to be Debo. And Ayuk.
That's why I didn't mention him, because that's assumed.
Yep. I do expect Ayuk to still be out there, because as soon as he flipped that switch, because that conversation he had with Shanahan, apparently a little bit came out about it, that he said, which was basically he took it as this is easy because he got forced into that number 1 receiving role in 2020 when Debo went down. So he had all the snaps, and yeah, he was getting open. Like, it was by a half step, but he was still making plays. But he wasn't like trying. He wasn't giving in that effort that they wanted. And as soon as he started showing that, he got more playtime. So now he's stepping up. So I'd expect him to stay in that starting 1-2 role. I hope that they do re-sign Jennings. I do, because he showed up and he's apparently very grateful to the Niners because he got help from them. What I am curious about is who we get to be their coach.
Okay.
Because Welker left for Miami.
So here's another question for you. And this is I don't think it's necessarily an immediate need, but something I think you guys need to start thinking about, and curious they are, is Kittle, great player, seems to almost have a Dalvin Cook issue where he cannot go a whole season without getting hurt. And given the amount of years where he's missed at least a few games, not significant play time, it seems to me like it's gonna really start showing. Like I don't see him getting healthier. It's gonna just start being more and more common. So the question is like how many more good solid years you guys have as he is not just your top tight end, but one of your top playmakers.
I think he can make it almost through his contract, just with some changes I saw towards the end of the season. Like a lot of people were complaining about his usage.
I'm not talking usage. I'm talking health.
No, I know. And I think this plays into his health. Because whenever he gets injured, he's playing a minimum of 80% of the snaps. His snap count seemed to go down. He stayed healthier. He still made big plays. He wasn't, of course, making, 15 catches or whatever, 200 yard, having his crazy kill games, whatever. Mm-hmm. But he stayed a lot healthier. He was more consistent. He still got chances to make big plays. He still got open. I think that they're going to lean on that, as much as Kittle may not entirely like it, just because it means a lower snap count, but it's keeping him healthy.
Yeah.
So part of that I think is going to be addressed in hopefully this year's draft, because I think there's some pretty good tight end prospects to get him a nice 1-2 to just lighten the load on him. But that's what I've been noticing as far as the past season, especially halfway through. More passes went to the receivers. He wasn't targeted as much, which it's kind of like you had your pick on who to hit. But the fact that he had time off the field more, I think that's going to play into his longevity.
I think it's hard to gauge just because of the types of injuries he's had.
Yeah,
like the vast majority of them have been around his knees, thighs, and calves. And like especially once like knees, especially. Like I mean, wasn't he one of the guys who's playing through an injury? Like where he's like had at least 1 or 2 seasons where he's like, oh yeah, I was hurt the whole time. I had to get off-season surgery, but I just didn't want to quit on the season. So
I think he has with a sprain or strain, and then it might have been a strain that had to be like surgically repaired. He does have I don't remember his left or right arm, but me and our brother were talking about it. He has a ligament that's actually permanently damaged. But in order to repair and rehab it, it would take an entire season. Mm-hmm. So he refuses to do that. That's why he always wears a brace.
Yeah, like that's one of those. Even with his reduced workload, it does I just get the feeling that he has maybe two solid seasons where he's mostly healthy before he's going to start being like Gronk, where he consistently misses a quarter, if not half the season every year.
Yep.
And just because he's a big blocking tight end, he takes a lot more punishment than your average tight end, and I think that's really why you're going to start seeing him like Gronk. Which, I mean, the guy's great. I hope it doesn't. Oh, yeah. It's just one of those. I do hope Shanahan really does start. I hope that they realize, like, guys, this is eventually he's just going to fall apart.
Yeah, and I feel like they've been doing that recently. Okay. It's protecting him a little bit through his blocking assignments, and like, hey, he's burned out right now. Okay, swap. Like, and specific packages, which are key packages, he's not in. Like certain goal lines, like. And then kind of circle back to your running backs, because I touched receivers. I kind of hope they re-sign Raheem, even though he's coming off surgery. Just he's so similar to, our rookie running back who set the rookie rushing record for the Niners.
That one's interesting to me just because it's like there's two parts that is. One, I don't know what it is about your guys' running back room, but it feels like at least for the last few years, every single one of them's gotten hurt at least at some point in the year for the last few years. So that makes me wonder, they're like, is it just the guys you've been getting, or is there something else that's causing your running back specifically to always be hurt? And the other issue, especially with Raheem, is like he is the oldest guy in your room. Like all the other guys are like 25, he's almost 30. So, well, yes, he might remind you. Is he going to be able to? How many good snaps does he have left? Really?
I kind of think he has plenty. Like, even though he's been injured a lot, like he hasn't really been in that running back role, except for the past, I want to say since 2019, because he went around the league as a special teamser. He was on the Niners as a special teamser until he showed out in running back. But his speed and running back gifts are very similar to Mitchell, and I think he can help show him how to utilize him, because there seem to be, like, even though Elijah Mitchell has that, I'm going to do that one cut, get upfield, get the bare minimum 4 or 3 yards, whatever. That's what my coaches want. Mostert, I feel from that veteran standpoint, can help show him like, hey, yeah, it's good. Here's where you see this other seam. You can make a cut here, and it's not even much of a cut, but just you could just take off right here. You have the speed. Someone who could tell him, you run a 4.3. You could beat these guys down the stretch.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly, even more so than your quarterback situation, that's the one I think I'm curious to see. Even in like, okay, can the guys come back healthy? It's, can they keep your running backs healthy? Like, it's, I bring this up a lot of time. When you see players consistently get hurt every single year on a team, 1 or 2 seasons you can blame on flukes of the players. 3, 4, 5 seasons in a row, that it's clear it's not just the players. There's something else that is causing them to always get hurt.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that it's a one cut system. So when you make that cut and you hit that hole, you're supposed to hit it. You have to run full speed. So you're running into linebackers, I'd say more often than not, full tilt. So there's probably a lot more collision than most of your, hey, you're gonna hug the line, dance around, kind of create some space, rather than you're gonna run through him.
Yeah, and it's like, I do wonder if they can figure that out, because if you guys have had good running backs when they've been healthy, but you keep on having to change it. Like, it's every other game. It's like, oh yeah, no, now we got this guy.
Yeah.
We have these two. Never mind, they're both out. We got these two back.
I'm curious because I think, the only season that I believe we've had a full running back play the entire season, which was 2019. Mostert did 16 games. But also, I know it's iffy that he comes back. Being realistic, Miami could offer money.
Yeah.
And he would match real well.
Well, and that's also, I think that's another hard part, is you guys have some good running backs. So if any of them get offered, how much of a fight are you really going to put up to try to keep him there, outside of maybe Mitchell?
Yeah, I mean, Mitchell's a rookie, so we have him for a significant amount of time. I mean, the same goes for Trey Sermon. I want to say Wilson's still under contract, but I mean, they like him. They'll probably keep him. Hasty is still under contract. So really, it's just Mostert that's not under contract in the running backs room.
Is Wilson? Well, Wilson would depend because he just had his 4th year, so would depend on how his contract was structured.
Yeah, if there's a 5th-year option.
Yeah, Hasty though. Yeah, he's in his 2nd year. Yeah, the Wilson, that's the one that's going to be interesting, just because if he's in his 4th year, if he gets a good offer, do you guys option him or do you just let him walk?
Yeah. And there's quite a few that I think are coming up. So I think I want to say Use Check's another one that's coming up. And good luck replacing him.
Yeah. I mean, fullbacks really are a dying breed.
Yeah. And I mean, Wilson Jr. is going to be interesting to see too. I think he's still in a contract no matter what. Because he was a undrafted rookie when we picked him up. So I want to say he was on like a 2-year deal, and then they extended him last season or the season before. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure he got an extension at some point.
Let's see. Ooh, that's another.
Another deal.
Interesting thing is it looks like your O-line is starting to get old.
Yeah, they are. But they did draft some decent pieces last season.
Your center is 36. Wow.
Yeah, Alex Mack.
Yeah. Like I knew Williams was in his 30s.
Yeah, but
I didn't realize your center was that old.
Yeah.
Oh, but even your youngest starter on the O-line is Glinski at 27.
Yep. Which I think he's due, or I want to say he's on the last year of his deal coming up.
Let's see, 2018. Yeah, I would think so. That he's coming up onto his last year before you have a chance to option him.
Yeah. Then we have Mac for another 2 years.
So that's one of those, I'm curious to see how long he's going to be able to keep going. Because,
yeah,
a 36-year-old center, man. Ooh. I'm surprised he's still playing.
He's had a good, career with Atlanta. I mean, that's why he came here, because he was familiar with Shanahan. Let's see. This guy. Run skill. Oh, he was cheap. He's only on a 1-year deal. They got a lot to address.
Well, it's it feels like you guys are this weird position where you actually could get a couple more years out of a lot of your players.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that window could close real fast. Real fast.
Well, we do have 3 younger guys. They're actually right on the roster. Colton McKivicks, who actually started for Trent Williams when he went down against the Rams. Aaron Banks, who was a rookie, and Jalen Moore, I believe, are the younger guys they have on the roster who are depth for now, but I think the expectation is to elevate them. Yeah, Jalen Moore is a rookie. I want to say McKivicks was a rookie as well. No, he's only his 2nd year, so he's going into his 3rd. And Banks was for sure rookie. So they have youth there, and they're hopefully learning from these vets. But
yeah, I'm really curious to see how you guys can handle the next 2 years, because it really does seem like you need to try to do those 2 years. You guys really have, like I said, and when I said it feels like your window can close real fast, just you guys are in that weird period where you have veterans, but they're not too old. You have some young guys, but in 2 to 3 years, those veterans are all probably going to be gone, and all your young guys are going to start looking like new contracts. So that's what's good. It's going to be really interesting how you guys can navigate really the next 3. Especially with it is going to come down on how Trey Lance performs, and I mean it's like that deep dive I found a while ago, looking at how do you develop your rookie QBs, and unfortunately, it does seem like the method they opted to go with Lance is the one that tends to have the least success overall. So it is one of those. I do agree that with Tyler, that they should have gotten him more involved. I don't necessarily agree that they should have started him. I think sticking with Jimmy G was the right move, but they should have had him on the field more, just to get him out there, get him more involved, get him more used to the speed, not necessarily as a starter, but also not just as like, oh, they're bringing him in for a wildcat. Actually, utilize him where it's both him and Jimmy on the field for some of those trick plays, just to really keep him. I mean, invested isn't the word I want to use. That's the one I'm thinking of, because I think that does seem to be the best way to develop your QBs. Because now he's essentially he's essentially going to be taken over with no real solid experience as the starter.
No, just two starts. I don't know. Apparently, he made a lot of progress in practices, and they said a lot of good things about him. So we'll see. That's again one of my I'm going to be tuned in.
Coaches always say that about the developing quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was also players too. So
yeah,
again, they're their teammates. So
yeah. No one's gonna go to press. Oh yeah, no, he's terrible.
This gets trashed.
I don't know why we drafted him.
I don't know, but at least one person would probably mutter like, "Hey, maybe we should keep Garoppolo." But enough about the Niners.
Are you sure you want to talk about them? About the Vikings? Because man, I am happy just because they needed to get rid of both Spielman and Zimmer. They needed to so bad. And I like the guys they're bringing in.
Yep.
Rams offensive coordinator, they've had good offense. He learned, under McVay, who's part of the whole Shanahan system. And that's really
from Shanahan too.
Well, and also they have the players that fits those kind of schemes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really they have someone who is not afraid to be a pass first offense, which that probably has been their biggest issue. They were so obsessed with being zone run scheme, run first, which you have freaking Jefferson and Thielen. Why are you so afraid of being a pass first offense?
I don't know. And then you had Osborne showing up. Yeah, they.
Well, and then yeah, freaking Smith before he got hurt was basically we didn't even miss Rudolph when he was there.
Yep.
And that even when we had Rudolph, that was the other problem was we had these great tight ends and we really were misusing them. We weren't letting them be a Kelsey or a Kittle or a Goddard. We were having them be more blockers who could also catch.
Yeah.
Whereas the Rams, they have no qualms with getting getting Higbee and their tight ends involved as passers.
They get Higbee the ball a lot.
Exactly.
Even that third string tight end, they got him involved.
Which Conklin stepped up. He had a good season. He wasn't amazing, but he was a good tight end. So now you have two solid tight ends. You have Jefferson. You have Osborne. I mean, even Westbrook and Beasley Johnson and Beebe aren't bad receivers. I think, though, I am curious to see what happens with Thielen. Just because I think his drop in production isn't just because of Jefferson.
Yeah, I mean, he's up there.
He's, I think, 32? 31.
Yeah.
But he's definitely started to see injuries, missing more time. I don't think they will move on from him. Like it's really is one of those like he is the Brady of the Vikings, where it's like he seemed like a kind of guy who would retire before he left. Honestly,
Yeah, I could see that. He's one of those guys. I mean, with that, how would you feel about a lot of the campaigning I've seen around like Murray has been to get him to the Vikings?
it doesn't matter who you put at quarterback if they don't fix that offensive line. And we've already seen what Murray does when he doesn't have an offensive line. So
Scramble, deep shot.
exactly, they need to fix the offensive line. There's a lot of talk about Darasani showed promise, but it's still one of those I'm not sold. And Brian O'Neill, I think he was in the Pro Bowl, but it's still just one of those they need to really get some upgrades there. They need to get some solid players who can pass block too. Because that's the other thing. Even when they had the smaller run block guys, in their zone run scheme they would be good in run block, but they were just crap in pass block.
They were horrible in pass block.
Like they need guys who can handle a bull rush. That's what they need. And if they can't do that, it doesn't. You could put freaking Rodgers back there, and he would struggle. And that's really what's sad is, let's say Cook gets hurt again and misses the whole season, and Thielen retires. The rest of the offensive players are still good enough that even with an average QB, you could have a really strong offense as long as you upgrade the line.
Yeah.
And I have seen talk that they're going to that a lot of people are starting to think that maybe they don't move on from Cousins. And even that I'm not opposed to if they fix the offensive line. Just because it's they to get rid of Cousins without having a bunch of dead money, they have to do it a certain way. So I've already resigned myself that, okay, that's not going to happen. But as long as they fix the offensive line, I can live with that. Which, the Rams' offensive line wasn't bad. The fact that they still had Whitworth playing like he was, hopefully that means they can figure out how to get some guys involved. I will say, though, I think on top of the O-line, the other big issue is just really the defense top to bottom.
That felt like a mess towards the end of last season.
It was. And there was a lot of reasons for it. There was always talk like, oh, yeah, well, we didn't have pass rush because Hunter was hurt. Well, it's like, well, if your one DN is the only reason you have a pass rush, that means the rest of the guys just aren't good pass rushers. You need better pass rushers.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, that secondary, Terrence Smith's been a great player, but the guy's old. He's lost a step. Xavier Woods has had some issues. They need to get that secondary sorted out because that has been, outside of their O-line, the biggest weakness for basically 3 or 4 years straight. And even their the linebackers, it's Barr is great at pass rush, not good at coverage, gets a lot of penalties, and is always hurt. Kendricks is better, but he still has issues. Really, Vigil's the one who seems like he could be a solid role player. Unfortunately, I'm expecting the defense to be a full rebuild.
And I'm been looking the Vikings haven't announced who their defensive coordinator is going to be. So it kind of feels up in the air on what that scheme's going to be like anyway.
What I saw, I was literally just looking at the article. It sounds like it's going to be either, let's see, where was it? So Wes Phelps is projected to be the offensive coordinator.
Really?
Either as OC or pass game coordinator, with potentially Thomas Brown being the OC.
Yeah,
and then
he interviewed today.
It sounds like the defense coordinator is going to be Ed Donatel, who was the defense coordinator for the Broncos, which I'm okay with. The Broncos, like the defense was pretty solid.
They had a good defense.
So I feel like they have the right coaches in place where if they can continue what they were doing at their respective teams, they could be a really solid staff. It's more, can they get the pieces in place to do something with it? But I mean, honestly, just having a tight ends coach, potentially it's even just your passing games coordinator, gives me hope that they will, at the very least, use their tight ends correctly.
So, depending on since you have that tie to the Denver Broncos defensive coordinator, Von Miller is going to be an unrestricted free agent this season.
Yeah.
So
and you also have ties to the Rams.
Yep.
And I've thought about that because there's going to be some guys leaving the Rams. So I'm sure you can probably convince someone like, hey, come play for us.
Miller, he might be down. I'm sure it's going to be a difficult situation to leave if the Rams actually offer an extension like, hey, we'll keep you. You can continue to play with Donald. Mm-hmm. But getting to play with Hunter might be good for him too. Or at least make him happy.
I would happily swap out Barr for Miller because at least Miller showed that he can stay healthier and commit less penalties.
Production left. Yeah. Penalties are big.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think, though, they need to start doing some long-term planning for Thielen's replacement. Quarterback, they need to really assess Kellen Mond, see if he actually is a long-term solution. And then the other thing, though, is and this more just needs to be proactive, is they need to start determining if Madison can become your full-time running back. Just because with Cook's trajectory, I don't see he's going to start missing more and more time.
Yeah, he is.
And I'm really curious, if they're not careful, he's going to end up like Gurley, where he just can't stay healthy at all, and they're just going to cut him.
Just production just ends.
Exactly.
Randomly one season.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good sign, though, on the defensive coordinator side. He's from that Vic Fangio tree, and it seems like he'll probably at least have a good front.
They have good pieces.
Yeah.
Can they supplement them and replace, and all that? For example, it's what happens with if Sheldon Richardson, Pierce, Tomlinson on the D tackle spot, which are all solid players, but who's really good? Can those guys become an actual dominant D tackle? Can Hunter stay healthy, and who's going to be at the left spot? I get a feeling Griffin's gone again, which he showed flashes, but I think honestly it was just too much defensively for him to really excel again. Wanham has had good production, but he's still when Hunter was gone, there was nothing. So he needs to step up, or they need someone else. And the secondary, I have no idea. Honestly, I think just burn it to the ground and get a whole bunch of new guys.
I could see that probably happen, honestly. Making some trades and signing some free agents.
Yeah. Well, it's it would suck to do it to Smith just because he's just he was like Rudolph and he was like Thielen, where he is one of their guys. He's been there a whole career. He wants to retire as one of them, but he's definitely had some drop off and had some injuries. But they could keep him around, I think, and let him fill the same role Weddle did for the Rams this year. But Dantzler, Peterson, and Woods are the other three. Woods had some good seasons, but he's definitely, I think, could be a lot better. And same with Peterson, Dantzler. And just, it's the defense just really has underperformed. I'm curious to see, is it because Zimmer was just checked out or had bad schemes, or is it the players, or was it a combination? And that's what it's going to be hard to see and project on.
Yeah. I don't know. gonna be interesting to watch unfold, and this this feels like an odd off season, just on how many coaches and coordinators are going to make lateral moves to new organizations because of the connections they have for whoever's becoming head coach. And it's just interesting because it's creating a lot of voids on these other teams that they have to fill.
Well, it's like, I mean, really look at what's going on with the Rams as far as coordinators. Like, okay, yeah, losing your offensive coordinator and defense coordinator, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But for a team that just won the Super Bowl, the amount of assistants that they're losing instead of being able to promote is crazy.
Yep.
It is crazy to me how many of those guys are just going with the other guys for those lateral moves.
Yep.
I don't think it's because they hate working with McVay. I doubt that's what it is. It's just they probably have better connections with those other guys, but still, it feels like that's something you never saw in the past. You never saw that high of roster churn from the staff of a Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah.
That's new normal. I don't know.
I mean, it could be. I mean, it could just be like, okay, I'm more guaranteed to be offensive coordinator over here with the new head coach rather than staying here applying, but potentially missing out. So,
yeah,
I'm gonna take this almost guarantee,
which is fair. And also, like, maybe it's they feel it's arguably easier to make a name for yourself in a new system, not an established one that you've been in a part of, where you have more ways to show your impact and build that resume. Still wild to see, though.
Yeah, that's what I thought has been pretty nuts.
I think the big thing, though, where it's like the Vikings, they need to rebuild fast because now is definitely their time to capitalize on their division.
Mm-hmm.
It's who knows what's going to happen to the Packers after losing Rodgers. Because, yeah, they might be able to keep it together for one season, but how long is that going to actually keep going? The Bears, yeah, they got rid of Nagy, but is Lance an actual long-term solution? And can the new guy actually fix that team? And then the Lions are still the Lions.
Yeah.
I feel bad for them.
They showed so much heart.
Oh, they do.
They showed so much heart.
That is one thing. Like, I can't relate to where even the Packers. I don't hate them. Like, it's not one of those where like there's really only two teams in the league where I'm like, yeah, no, I always want to see them lose, and yeah, they go 0-16. I'm perfectly fine. But the Lions are like, I just can't root against as long as the Vikings aren't losing to them or the division to the Lions. They can win all their games, and I'm totally fine with it. They have suffered enough. They've done their penance.
Gone through enough pain.
Right.
Well, the new season starts soon enough, or at least the off season does. Yeah. It's what? It's in a couple days, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's see. What NFL calendar? Let's look at their calendar.
Starts. That is not the date I actually wanted.
Let's see. So 22nd through the 8th, teams can designate players for franchise and transition tags. Late February, March, when you get your compensatory picks.
Yep, March 16th.
March 1 through 7th is the scouting combine. And then 14th through 16th is the tampering period. Yeah, and free agency is officially open on the 16th.
Yep.
And that's when things really, the offseason really begins.
That's when it gets cooking.
Mm-hmm. And then, let's see. The draft is, first, the weekend of May. End of April, weekend of May.
Oh.
Now, granted, this article is looking specific to the Lions, so I don't really care about their players, but... Yeah, everything's coming up as like a team specific. Like, no, I just want a general calendar, guys. Come on. Oh, here, operations calendar, NFL operations. So we are firmly Legacy Bowl, yeah. So the scouting combine beginning of March is the first big thing coming up. And I'm curious to see some of the guys in that draft. The Utes sent a lot of guys, a lot of good players.
Oh,
Britton Covey. Covey is officially going to the draft. Well, we'll see if he actually gets drafted, but he's officially declared.
nice.
He seems like a guy where I don't know why you wouldn't just like at the very least pick him as a free agent for special teams. Because the dude was a hell of a returner.
Mhm.
And yeah, he's small, but he's one of those guys who was like he was gritty and he worked hard. So it's like a low investment. Devin Lloyd is one though. He's likely a top 15 pick, and he could. Honestly, like I would love it if the Vikings picked him up as a linebacker. The dude was a hell of a player. But I mean, there are some other really good players to watch. Like you have Thibodeau out of Oregon, who could be like a D end, linebacker hybrid style player. There's going to be a lot of good guys on offense. Ohio State had a lot of receivers declared for the draft.
Yeah, I thought I saw a lot about receivers and tight ends in this draft.
I mean, Ohio State alone, I think, had like 3 guys declare.
Dang.
Yeah, there was. Let's see. Let's see if we can find a good mock draft.
So I remember Covey.
Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan is another good guy for the edge. Kavion Thibodeau, Devin Lloyd, Ojaba, the other end from Michigan. Surprised they have. Oh, let's see, Derek Stingley. I know there's also like quite a few good O-line prospects, but I think it is really receiver, edge and linebacker guys, and some secondary dudes. That's like where a lot of the top.
Yeah, I saw him. Did see a handful of secondary corners specifically. Yeah, it'll be interesting because it's not QB heavy. There's not a lot of QB talk this year, so I'm actually interested to see that first round.
Yeah, well, because the QBs they have, they're not bad, but it's not like the year before we had Lawrence and all those other guys. It's gonna be interesting though. I'm curious to see how it shakes out.
Yes, football is always interesting.
I just hope that the Vikings finally turn the corner.
Isn't that what we all hope?
Yeah,
I hope for the same. So,
but I'd like to see some consistently good play for once because it really does feel like it's been a long. I mean, actually, now I think about it, it's basically been since before Culpepper's knee.
Culpepper.
Before he blew out his knee was the last time they were consistently good from season to season.
Yep.
So that's how long I've been waiting.
I watched the Vikings when Culpepper was lighting it up. Like, they're fun to watch.
Yeah, I would love to get back to those days, just without all the Love Boat stuff.
Maybe we'll get there.
A guy can dream.
Man can dream. Yep. Well, may the off season treat us well.
Take luck. Fingers crossed.